From Tel Aviv and the studios of I-24 News, I'm Jeffrey James, bringing you up to date with news making headlines this hour. German Chancellor Angela Merkel is leading calls for a cut to European Union funding linked to Turkey's membership talks to show the bloc's unhappiness with Ankara's crackdown in the wake of a failed coup. It is the latest round of a bitter spat between Berlin and Ankara, with Merkel saying it is important the EU acts in unity to defend its values. Turkey, whose application to join the EU is on hold, has alarmed European leaders with its hardline response to a thwarted bid to overthrow President Erdogan last year. More than 50,000 people have been arrested since the coup, including several German citizens.
From my point of view, the situation regarding human rights is absolutely unacceptable. Turkey is moving away step by step from what we conceive of as preconditions for the rule of law. And of course, I talked about how we are being affected by the fact that German citizens are in prison in Turkey. We believe without justification.
Joining me in studio right now is I-24 News Middle East correspondent Michael Pluchok. Michael, nice to see you and thank you for joining me. First up, tensions between the EU and Turkey are nothing new. So what's different about this one?
Absolutely, Jeffrey. You know, Turkey has been trying to join this exclusive club the way they would like to present it. That is the continent of Europe, essentially, for many, many decades now, and that has gone unsuccessfully so far. And it would appear that there's indeed another challenge to that. But what's changed is the geopolitics of the Middle East, essentially, Jeffrey. In my assessment, the war in Iraq, the war in Syria, the approachment of Russia as the new superpower, the new player calling the shots in the Middle East, that has all changed. And in a way, it has actually pushed Turkey to the forefront, giving it some extra importance, and that's compounded when you consider the 2016 refugee deal, for example, between Turkey and the EU, indeed, showing just how vital their geographic and political position is.
Okay, well, until now, the European Union has been giving Turkey a great deal of money, in fact, 750 million euros. Why are they paying this, and why are they cutting it out now?
Right, Jeff, and that's 750 million euros a year, it needs to be said. That's a rough estimate, but that's roughly a year, and it's in a program where the money is delivered each year from 2014 through 2020. Essentially, it's called pre-accession instrument. It's part of the national program for adoption of the acquis. That is to say that, essentially, Turkey signed a legal document in 2001 with the EU saying we will receive this money from you and we will utilize it to further better our democracy and our democratic values in the country. That's what the money is supposed to go for. EU members are questioning now, again, whether that money is being utilized in the way that they would like to see it happen. And many members are saying, in fact, the answer is no. And because Turkey is not holding up to their part of that agreement and liberalizing, in a sense, their country and turning it to more democratic in the eyes of the European Union, they're considering to withhold those funds now.
Okay, Michael Pluchok in studio joining me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Well done. Iraqi forces have taken control of the last district in the oil-rich province of Kirkuk, still in the hands of Kurdish Peshmerga fighters following a 3-hour battle. This, according to security sources. The district of Altun Kupri falls between the city of Kirkuk, which fell to Iraqi forces on Monday, and Erbil, the capital of the semi-autonomous region of Kurdistan in northern Iraq that voted in a referendum last month to secede from Iraq against Baghdad's wishes. Forces made up of US-trained Iraqi troops, Iranian-backed militia and federal police began their advance on Altun Kupri early this morning. It was not immediately clear whether there were any casualties in the fighting. Joining us right now from Erbil via Skype is freelance journalist Mohammed Rasool. Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us. You're in a very interesting spot there, very interesting position. This morning saw a quick defeat for Peshmerga forces in Altun Kupri. How is the fighting being felt across Iraqi Kurdistan? Are there worries that the Israeli forces may be headed to Erbil? And where are you now?
Thank you for having me. I'm right now in Erbil, and I think during this morning it was the last disputed area that was taken back by the Iraqi forces from the Kurdish forces, and then Kurdish forces are standing across each other with the Iraqi forces in south of Erbil and the north of Kirkuk. The fighting has been a reason of rising worriness about within the Kurdish population in the northern Iraq. But however, there is no sign of more advance of the Iraqi forces and the other groups that are included with the Iraqi forces.
There are Shiite militias involved in the skirmishes who are joined with the Iraqi federal troops. What bearing does this have on Kurdish Iranian forces?
Well, the Shia militias, with many brigades and with many groups, has been under the fighting under the Iraqi army, especially fighting against the Islamic State group for past 2 years, and they have a strong position within the Iraqi army and within the Iraqi government. So they are having a strong position, and they are advancing toward the other territories, but according to the agreements, the Shia militias are supposed to withdraw from the disputed areas between Iran and the Kurdistan region.
Joining us there from Erbil is Mohammed Rasul, and thank you very much for your time. Good to talk with you, and take care. The Pentagon announced on this day a full probe of the ambush of U.S. forces in Niger earlier this month. 4 U.S. soldiers were killed in the attack as President Trump faces criticism for how he has responded to the bereaved families. A Pentagon team has been dispatched to Niger to investigate the ambush. But what were U.S. forces doing in the African nation?
The killing of 4 American soldiers in Niger on October 4th has sparked many questions, not only regarding why the ambush wasn't anticipated, but also what is the role of U.S. military in the West African country. U.S. officials consider Niger strategically important in the war on terror. As part of a counterterrorism mission, U.S. troops advise and train local troops as they battle Islamic extremists in neighboring countries. To its west, Niger shares a border with Mali, where an al-Qaeda affiliate and other Islamist groups operate. In the northeast, Niger borders Libya, where ISIS and other extremists have established strongholds. Directly south of Niger is Nigeria, which has waged battle against the threat of Boko Haram. In 2013, then-President Barack Obama had deployed around 100 military personnel to Niger. Their mission? To help the French military that had intervened in neighboring Mali the year before. The French had moved into Mali after soldiers overthrew the government in a coup. Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb operates in the northern part of Mali and have been moving toward the nation's capital. Since 2013, the number of U.S. troops in Niger has risen to around 800. The vast majority are used as construction crews working to build up a second drone base in Niger's northern desert. Other military service members run a surveillance drone mission from Niger's capital of Niamey. But the U.S. is not the only nation with a large military presence in West Africa. France has about 5,000 forces. Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger, and Chad also operate as part of a multinational task force to eradicate terror from the region. Tal Heinrich, I24 News.
We are taking a 1-minute break right now, but don't go anywhere. Stay with us for more on I24 as we look at the fallout from the Catalonia referendum and Madrid's rejection, as I am joined by our international affairs correspondent, Bianca Zanini. And also why 2 famous faces have been painted on a very special wall. All this and more after the break. You're watching I24 News.
perspective. What you see isn't always what we see. Every evening, Debrief takes you beyond the headlines and goes inside the news of the day from a Middle Eastern perspective. The deals, the people, the surprises. Get the inside story and how it will affect you. Debrief, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Only on I-24 News. The trends, the fads, the breakthroughs. Get it all on Trending. From food, music, and art to advances in modern medicine. Weekdays at 8 a.m. Only on I-24 News. See Beyond.
Welcome back to I-24 News. I'm Jeffrey James. We continue breaking news this hour, and Spain's King Felipe has met with EU Parliament President Antonio Tajani in northern Spain. The meeting came as the government in Madrid moved to impose central rule over Catalonia, whose threat to break away has unsettled the euro and hurt confidence in the eurozone's fourth largest economy. The Prime Minister will convene an emergency cabinet meeting on Saturday to push ahead with Article 155, which suspends Catalonia's autonomy. Protests are expected in Barcelona on Saturday.
With the unspeakable presence of political prisoners, there is a need to take to the streets again. Therefore, I believe that from this point of view, this mobilization is only for those who have a certain political view, but it is necessary for Catalans to stand up in defense of their rights and freedoms that are being violated and threatened.
Joining us now in studio here at I-24 News is our international affairs correspondent, Bianca Zanini. It's always nice to see you. Bianca, this implementation of Article 155 would seem to be clear that it ends the game. Seem to be clear, that is. But how then will Catalonia respond? What's the best case and what's the worst case?
Right, so there seems to have been this dance on both sides, you know, one taking one step and the other taking another step and waiting, and no one wants to take that final step that could push everything over the hill. But this is one of the key issues, the fact that Catalonia does not have the support of the full population. At least half of the Catalans didn't show up to the referendum. They consider it illegal, just like Spain does. And of course, this gives Prime Minister Rajoy more security to move forward with the implementation of Article 155. But when he decides tomorrow at the cabinet meeting to push forward with the Article 55, it's not likely that he needs to go all the way. Article 55, 155 is a spectrum, really. And one of the things that he could do is force elections. If he does that, he'll really exploit this divide. But likely, we're going to see much smaller measures, because Spain does not have an interest in totally revoking the autonomy of Spain. They will if they have to, but it's not in their interest. Keep in mind that Spain has this image of a democracy. They have 17 well-functioning autonomous regions. They're peaceful. They're a European country. They do not want to shatter this image. They want to avoid people on the streets. They want to avoid a repetition of the police crackdown that we saw on October 1st. And this is Catalonia's strongest card.
The other thing to keep in mind, of course, is that Spain is the fourth largest economy in Europe, and the euro is taking a hit. I don't know about a dive, but a hit. How important would this be in the mind of those leaders, though? And Brussels must hate this.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes, indeed.
In the end, you know, we're looking at Catalonia, we're looking at Spain, but in the end, this decision will be made in Brussels, because without support, Catalonian independence will mean nothing. And so far, EU leaders have been saying really clearly that they are with Madrid. And essentially, this is what Catalonia is trying to change. They're trying to push their narrative to show the world how inflexible, how unfair Spain is. And the ability that Catalonia has is to mobilize hundreds of thousands of people. And that is what Spain needs to avoid, which is why we're likely to see a smaller measure than full-out implementing all of the Article 155 tomorrow.
Bianca Zanini, our international affairs correspondent here at I-24 News. Lovely to see you always, and a very nice report. Thank you. Israel's Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman has met with U.S. Secretary of Defense James Mattis Thursday, saying that Israel will defend its security at all costs, including strikes on Syria, and keeping an eye on Iran. Our defense correspondent now, Daniel Shamak, gives us the details in the following report.
Another critical meeting for Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman at a critical time. On Thursday, Lieberman met with his American counterpart, James Mattis, in Washington. And in keeping with recent meetings, Iran and Syria were his primary focus. Mattis, on the other hand, seemed to have other things on his mind, namely the deaths of 4 U.S. soldiers in Niger earlier this month.
And the loss of our troops is under investigation. We in the Department of Defense like to know what we're talking about before we talk. And so we do not have all the accurate information yet. We will release it as rapidly as we get it.
The Israeli defense minister, in his public comments at the top of the meeting, noted his satisfaction with U.S. President Trump's recent speech on the Iranian nuclear deal.
We fully support President Trump's vision regarding Iranian threats, and of course we think that it's something very, very urgent and necessary to take real decisions on this issue.
Mattis acknowledged in his own comments that Israel and the U.S. were largely on the same page when it came to Iran. But the secretary was actually one of the key figures encouraging Trump to preserve the nuclear deal itself, going public on the matter earlier this month.
If we can determine that this is in our best interest, then clearly we should stay with it.
Public statements aside, behind closed doors, Lieberman's meeting with Mattis and U.S. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster also addressed growing tensions on Israel's border with Syria. The same day the 3 defense leaders met, Israel and Syria had another spat of crossfire over their shared border. And on this matter, Lieberman did not shy away from the opportunity to issue a stern warning. He explained Iran's intentions to expand its military presence in Syria by building bases for its forces and allowing Shiite militias to infiltrate. Lieberman clearly stated that these actions will not be tolerated and that Israel will do whatever it needs to in order to defend itself. But what actions are behind these words? What are Israel and the U.S. really willing to do to keep Iran in check? That remains to be seen. Daniel Tzemach, I-24 News.
Okay, we are going to take a short 3-minute break, but stay with us because after this, it's expected that a gun owner will actually use their firearm. But what happens when they have actually pulled the trigger and killed someone? Find out after this break. 3 minutes.
is becoming increasingly connected. 6.5 million Wi-Fi enabled devices are now shipping every day. And global consumer internet traffic is growing exponentially, with 2.8 billion internet users consuming video at a breathtaking rate. We are creating personalized mobile entertainment and communications breakthroughs that are connecting millions of people and billions of devices around the globe. We are Eris, and we're powering your digital world.
This week on Holy Land Uncovered, we explore the connection between art and faith. We take a tour of Jerusalem's third art biennale, and we check out a major discovery which was unveiled under the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Join us Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News.
Americans have simply lost trust in news media.
What happened to the news? All I get is a daily serving of lies.
Do your job and just tell me the news.
I am overloaded with news that is useless.
Give me the facts. Let me sort it.
Where's the integrity?
Why is the news so biased? I will never trust the media.
This week on Strictly Security. Former head of Israeli military intelligence, General Amos Yadlin, will give his insight on President Trump's new Iran policy. And we'll dive to the bottom of Lake Ontario in search of Canada's sunken military jets and the mystery that surrounds the Arrow project. Join Barbara Opel-Rome Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, only on I-24 News.
Brace yourself for your daily dose of hard news, exclusive live reporting and expert analysis, and a healthy mix of stories from the worlds of entertainment, culture, economy, tech, and lifestyle. We'll give you all this and more live from the leading TV news channel in the Middle East.
Welcome back. This is I-24 News broadcasting to you from Tel Aviv in Israel. Okay, there's an insurance policy for just about everything these days, but would you believe there is insurance coverage for people who shoot other people? I-24 News New York Bureau Chief Steve Langford has the story.
If I find myself in a position where I had to use my gun to defend my life, I can tell you right now, I'm going to be glad that I had the Carry Guard.
Carry Guard, self-defense insurance for gun owners. Brought to you by the National Rifle Association.
It's far easier than anyone understands for an innocent person to be convicted of a crime.
This promotional video from the NRA explains how policyholders can get immediate legal assistance, bail money, compensation for court time, and more in case you have to stand your ground.
To defend your rights from the tyranny of restrictions that prevent you from being able to defend yourself.
Here's what NRA Carry Guard says you should do if you've just shot someone.
Call 911, wait for the law enforcement to show up, and then call the emergency hotline on the back of their NRA Carry Guard membership card that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to all NRA Carry Guard members.
The Self-Defense Personal Firearms Liability Package also offers advice, answering questions like, what do I do with my gun? What do I say when I call 911? How do I make sure the police know I'm not a threat? How much do I tell the police when they show up? Do I have to worry about getting detained or arrested? And when will I get my gun back?
Now they're selling insurance that covers the cost when a gun owner kills someone and claims self-defense.
Some are calling this murder insurance.
My name is Sabrina Fulton, and my son's name was Trayvon Martin. It's time to put the guns down.
When will I get my gun back? Now, to a controversial art exhibit in the West Bank that's causing a stir. This show doesn't take place in a museum or a gallery. It's happening right on the streets of Bethlehem. But it's also raising questions about the role art should play in areas of conflict. Culture correspondent Maya Margit filed this report.
The writing's on the wall, and it features U.S. President Donald Trump, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, and yes, even Larry David. Or is that Bernie Sanders? New graffiti on the Israeli separation barrier in Bethlehem is turning heads and stopping tourists in their tracks. Mysterious Australian artist Lush Sucks is the man behind the art.
When I see the artists, I feel that they have empathy for us, that perhaps the Palestinian people don't want them to come and paint and then go. The American president promised several times to solve the Palestinian issue, and you are here in town and you see the situation has not changed.
The West Bank security barrier has long been a target for street artists, both pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian. But Lush Socks has taken graffiti to a new level, with huge murals of many familiar faces, most painted based on what the artist's Twitter followers voted for. But some say the art, which does not directly mention the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, misses the mark.
I think it has no place here. I think it is all a joke, which I think our political leader is a joke. But I don't think it has any significance of what this wall stands for, or bringing it down is going to help. It's more like a comic strip.
I think the wall risks at becoming kind of a street art gallery rather than actually politicizing what it's about.
It's not the first time Lush Socks uses the separation barrier as his canvas. Back in August, he painted Trump embracing a watchtower and commenting on the U.S.-Mexico border wall the president plans to build. Political statements that are both off the wall and on it. Maya Margit, I-24 News.
Okay, joining us now in studio is Ayman Sikseq, tonight's host of The Rundown. Ayman, nice to be with you tonight. You're covering the controversial sale of German submarines to Israel, which has sparked so far-reaching probes. So tell us more. What's it all about?
Well, Jeffrey, a huge headline in Israel today from Yediot Ahronot. Reportedly, Germany has signed the memorandum of agreement with Israel. It's a $2 billion deal to sell Israel 3 submarines. It's been hugely controversial now for months. Many officials in the Israeli security operation have objected to this deal. Prime Minister Netanyahu is the only one behind it. He's the only one who could also topple it, because Germany is waiting to see what will happen with the investigation into wrongdoing with Netanyahu. If things go wrong in that investigation, Germany might just pull out. We're going to talk about this in depth tonight on The Rundown. It's 8 p.m. Israel time, 1 p.m. in New York, with all the details about this huge story in Israel tonight.
It sounds terrific, and thanks for being with me.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
We look forward to that. Remember, you can tune in to The Rundown at 8 p.m. Israel time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as Ayman just told us. So there you go, right here on I-24 News. I'm Jeffrey James. Thank you very much for watching, and